this segment, you're going to hear a great deal about the courts and Prop 36. And you're going to hear from somebody who probably is one of the most informed and resourceful experts about the courts, Judge Stephen Manley.
We have learned from early evaluation results that those courts that use the dedicated calendar, similar to drug courts, and utilize the concept of team collaboration in the courtroom are the most successful in getting defendants into treatment and keeping them there. Team collaboration happens in the trenches in each and every courtroom. Now, the traditional court model is not built around teams with shared goals. Rather, it is built on an adversarial system in which there is always a winner and always a loser. The judge may be the leader, but the traditional role of the judge in an adversarial system is not to motivate the defendant or the client, but to decide issues after formal contested hearings. Now, in this segment, we have brought together judges and commissioners from throughout our state. They all have diverse views and are individuals, and they all have numerous experiences. We wanted to hear from them, their opinions about how Proposition 36 is working in different places in California. What are the common challenges they face? What are some of the barriers that they have overcome with their teams? What are some of their innovations that they have developed? And why is the drug court team model a best practice for Proposition 36? Let's hear from our judges. I've asked these judges to join me this afternoon and to be very candid with you. I think it's important that you understand that judges are not permitted to comment on cases pending before them. They are not permitted to give their personal views of decisions that may have been made by our Court of Appeal or our Supreme Court. And what they will be discussing with you are hypothetical issues that commonly come up in the drug court or Prop 36 setting. These questions will all be hypothetical in nature, but I'm sure those of you in the audience will have heard questions similar to these, hopefully. So let me start out by introducing the panel. I'm Judge Stephen Manley. I am from Santa Clara County Superior Court. I supervise Proposition 36. We have 9 judges working in Proposition 36. I also work in drug court, mental health, and dual diagnosis court, and I supervise close to 1,200 clients. To my immediate left is Judge Rogelio Flores. He is from Santa Barbara County Superior Court and sits in the beautiful community of Santa Maria. He has some 450 clients, he reports. He has a courtroom team, which we're going to be talking about this concept of team. And he hears Proposition 36 cases on 3 days a week, mental health, I believe, and dual diagnosis on 1 day, and drug court on 1 day. His Prop 36 court is a post-plea Prop 36 court, and cases are either sent to him or he has them after they have entered a plea and are on for sentence or have been sentenced. He hears both reviews of progress or difficulties in the client's treatment program, as well as violations of probation. Next to him is Commissioner Nancy Cisneros, who, with her permission, I'm going to call Judge Cisneros. She is from Fresno. She has the wonderful challenge of supervising all Proposition 36 clients in the county of Fresno, and she has some 2,000 of those clients. She has a courtroom team. She hears Proposition 36 cases 2 days of the week, I believe, and she also does drug court on 1 day. She also handles DEJ and diversion. Her court is a post-plea Proposition 36 court. The cases are sent to her and referred to her. What's important to understand is that the cases she hears in terms of those in the courtroom are those who are not doing well in Proposition 36 and those who are in the violation of probation stage of the proceedings. So that's a unique difference, and we're going to talk about that. Next to her is Judge Patrick Morris. He is from San Bernardino Superior Court. He sits in Central San Bernardino. He supervises approximately 1,500 clients. He has a team, as do each of these judges. He does Proposition 36, drug court, mental health court, dual diagnosis court, 5 days a week, including jury trials, pleas, sentencings, reviews, violations of probation. So the whole ball of wax in terms of Proposition 36 would be in Judge Morris's court. Seated next to him is Judge Stephanie Sontag, who is from San Diego County Superior Court. She is hearing Proposition 36 cases in Central San Diego, and she has 1,150 clients, she reported to me. She has a team, as do the other judges. She hears Proposition 36 cases 2.5 days a week, and she is also hearing drug court 1 day a week. Again, her calendar is post-plea. She hears sentencing reviews and violations of probations on different days of the week. And again, as with Judge Cisneros, she sees only the failures, those who are not doing well, struggling, or in violation of probation status. She is also new to the bench and new to Proposition 36 and to drug court. Therefore, she brings the unique quality of coming to this fresh, with no preconceived notions that Proposition 36 works or doesn't work, or the drug court works or doesn't work, or even the treatment works. So it will be very interesting to hear her views.
I actually had been talking to two judges while I was in practice, just happened to know them, Judge Bonnie DeManis, who started drug court in Central, and Judge Sue Finley, who started drug court in South County in San Diego, and I knew about their enthusiasm for drug court. So actually I have to tell you that I was a little bit excited about the drug court aspect. I knew nothing about Prop 36, but they all went together, so I thought this was a good way to have an assignment. I mean, there was so many things I could be doing, but this was a good first assignment.
A good start. All right. Well, wonderful. So you started out in Prop 36 and drug court. Coming in as a new judge to these assignments, what do you think was, if anything, the most important factor that helped you in getting the work done that was necessary?
Well, I had fortunately, very experienced teams in both drug court and Prop 36. In Prop 36, I think the team that's together now is the team that started it. And not only are they experienced, they work well together. Everybody seems to be compassionate yet firm, I think I'd say. So, and so they've helped me along, and they're also very gentle with me when I make mistakes.
We're talking here about the courtroom team. So you, in your, Judge Sontag, in your courtroom, you have the district attorney, public defender,
Right.
probation.
Probation.
What about treatment? Do they come in?
Not in Prop 36.
So they don't come in. But
No.
what drug court do they come in?
Drug court, we have treatment, and we have our law enforcement as well.
So you have a lot more team players.
Absolutely.
But in Prop 36, you have the district attorney, public defender, and probation.
Right.
What about you, Judge Morris? I know you have probation right next to you. They're almost in your courtroom all the time.
With the funding provided by Prop 36, we built a probation cubicle right next to our department, where we have as many as 6 on-site probation officers that provide direct court services. They do on-site probation reports after the plea of guilty. We essentially use them the very day the person is brought in, arraigned, pleads. We do same-day service with the on-site probation report, and then they do the reviews as well. But we also, in 36, have the treatment providers in the courtroom as well.
So they will come to the courtroom when their clients are being reviewed.
Yes.
It'll be right there, and you allow them to have input?
Oh, I make it part of a kind of a community experience. And we open it up so that everybody is sharing about this person's progress or lack of progress in treatment. But the first person I talk to is treatment on the review calendar.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you talk with your team before you talk to the defendants and clients?
In drug court, yes. But
What about 36?
36, it's ad lib.
Ad lib.
We
You
do it
just
cold turkey.
Go out there and do it.
The numbers are big. We have to move it, so we just start in.
Okay. What about you, Judge Sontag? You just go out there and you got probation gives you something in writing and you go from there?
Right, in Prop 36, it's very quick. We don't have a lot of discussion. I've read whatever's in the file ahead of time, and then it just moves quickly.
You're
from there.
well
There's nothing-
prepared, but no one sits down and talks about it except, so it's pretty formal.
Right, absolutely.
Very, okay. Wow. Judge Cisneros, now, with your 2,000 cases, do you have time to, even if you had a team, do you have time to ever even see them, let alone talk to them?
Oddly enough, we do.
Okay, tell me about it.
We have, I looked at the numbers after we started planning for this, and we average about 88 cases a day.
Okay.
And that's a mixed bag of sentencings, some very limited review hearings and violations of probation. I always have a written report for a sentencing or a violation of probation. And when those cases come up where any one of the team members, and in Prop 36 we have the DA, the defense attorney, and probation in court, if anybody wants to talk about it, they just let me know. We move it to the bottom of the stack, wait till we break for a break on the occasions that I let them take a break, or for lunch, when I let them have lunch, and we'll stop and staff the case. I
So
think
then
that's
you
very
all
helpful.
meet
We all
together.
meet, we meet in chambers. Sometimes it will happen in the middle of a hearing, that one of the attorneys will just kind of give me a sign, and we all troop out and talk about the case. And that happens with private attorneys as well. When they come in, they know they can ask to get input from everybody that's there.
Do you have treatment there?
We do not have treatment on a regular basis. Treatment is welcome to come in if they wish to, but we don't. We have, I believe, 12 different treatment providers.
Do they ever come in? They send you written reports, I assume.
They send written reports to probation.
Okay.
Probation then translates those reports for us when we see just the violations, because we don't see the people who are
Right.
doing well.
You're just seeing the people that are not doing well.
Right.
Yeah.
Probation will provide those reports directly to the attorneys if there's going to be any kind of an objection to the violation of probation or a contested hearing.
How many do you have that are contested? What percentage? I shouldn't.
Oh, I would say not more than 1 or 2% of the violations are contested.
Okay. But probation filters the information that comes from treatment. They rewrite it into.
They will filter it to me. It's provided as discovery to the attorneys.
Okay. All right. And that's your team. And now we have Judge Flores there in Santa Maria. I bet you have treatment there, probation. We've got the district attorney, the public defender, and who else?
And ADP, if we need them, to go over maybe a further assessment if it's needed, a follow-up assessment. But generally, on Wednesdays, all the treatment providers are present in court. And as we go over the reviews, including the successful reviews, which is the largest percentage of our Wednesday review calendar, if a provider or probation thinks we need to discuss this case for whatever reason, they just tell me, Judge, can we staff this case? That case goes to the foot of the calendar, and as we call the successful reviews and get people out, and then we handle the persons who are in violation status, we'll staff the violation cases, and we'll staff the cases with where there's some discussion that needs to take place by getting input from the providers that are present.
Let me make a point about the way we review, because Helio and myself do it. We review both positive progress at periodic at time intervals throughout the course of their treatment, and we also review the negative or the violations. In our court, the probation office only provides reports for those who are in violation. Every time a person comes to court for their periodic review, they bring in a sealed envelope a report to me from the treatment provider, and then bring it right to the bench with their NA sheet. So on the positive reports, we do not hear from probation. We don't burden them with that obligation to report on everybody.
You just get the feedback for every client from treatment.
Right.
And only if there's a violation with probation, then weigh
Exactly.
in.
Right.
And same for you, Raheel?
Except that every 90 days, we receive a written progress report from probation that goes into the file. But we see them much more frequently than just every 90 days. We may see them every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks as they progress through treatment. And most of the time, we don't have a written report from the file from probation. But every 90 days, we do get a positive report if they're doing well in treatment.
You've raised something here that I think is important we talk about. Two of you see only those who are doing poorly. They're either failing or they're in violation of probation status. And two of you see the winners, those that are doing well, and the ones that are not doing well. And from knowing you, I know you see them at the same time, and you put them at different parts of the calendar for different reasons. But let's talk about this general concept. And let me ask either Nancy or Stephanie for your input, since you're hearing only those who are doing poorly. Do you think that's a good way to run Prop 36 calendars?
Our Prop 36 is not really run on the drug court model as far as the courtroom participation. So that's one thing. Our probation department takes care of all the treatment decisions, and simply reports to us. So I have absolutely no connection directly with the treatment providers or how they're doing, like I would in a drug court.
Okay, well, let's just stop there.
Okay.
As a new judge and analyzing this, being in drug court where you get it one way and Prop 36, you get it another way, you've described the model. Which would you prefer?
Oh, drug court. There's no
Okay.
question that I
You
like.
like that input from treatment?
I really like the input from treatment. I like in drug court we do have a team concept as far as treatment, as far as sanctions, anything we can to motivate. I don't see that much involvement in Prop 36, and I think we're missing out. But some of these decisions were made for budgetary reasons.
Well, certainly,
so-
and we can't,
Yeah.
the presiding judge in the end makes a decision, and the executive committee or whoever in the court is going to decide how the calendars are to be operated. But what I'm interested in here is, this is not a perfect world. We are looking for some suggestions on how to do things better or how to improve. And assuming that you had the authority or the means to change things, would you make a change to review every Prop 36 client, regardless of whether they're failing or doing well on a regular basis?
Yes.
Okay, and what about you, Judge?
Absolutely. I think the contact between the judge and the individual defendants and the defendants themselves, I think it's a great benefit in drug court that we're lacking in Prop 36, to see the people that are advancing from one phase to another. We always take time in the good reviews to announce the day's clean and sober. Everybody applauds. It's a very positive, affirming experience. And for those that are not doing well, they look forward to the time when they will get that round of applause, or they will get the bell rung because they've done something good, or they'll get the approbation of their colleagues in the program and the people that are on the team. We don't have that in Prop 36, and I think it's a weakness of our program. If I could add a review hearing day and see everybody, it would make me happier, but more importantly, I think it would make for a more effective program. I think our treatment is weakened when we don't have those review hearings.
So you would have probably more success
I believe we would, yes.
if you had additional review hearings for those who are doing well, because addiction is a disease, and the fact that one is doing well today does not mean they're going to be doing well tomorrow, and to only see them when they're failing, to my mind, seems to reinforce that failure. And I know Judge Morris, you and Judge Flores are in a position where you can see everyone. What is your experience? Has it been along the lines I've described? Or
Well,
why don't you tell us?
I think, like Rogelio, we've tried to mimic the drug court model as best we can, given limitations of budget. It's not nearly as comprehensive or as in-depth an analysis, but I think that whole courtroom experience that Nancy referred to is an important experience where they see success as well as failure. And they learn that, they call it drug court theater. The whole experience of the day in court is a learning experience for all of these addicts, and they thrive on the successful reviews. You can see it as you do in drug court. It is a palpable kind of an atmosphere that's created when you review on the same calendar both the success stories as well as the relapses.
I remember when I was first assigned to the Proposition 36 calendar and the drug court calendar, it was my goal to see Prop 36 defendants weekly like I see drug court people when they first come in. Well, the numbers were so huge that became impossible. So we had to juggle. We had to make do with what we could. But one of the most amazing things about this review calendar, including reviewing persons who are doing well, is I have defendants who ask to come to court more frequently. They'll tell me, Judge, I'm struggling right now. I'm struggling with and I'm working a relapse prevention program, and I'm doing everything I can. And I said, well, why don't you come back in about 4 to 6 weeks? Judge, I need to come back next week or the week after next, and they'll say that. It's an amazing thing. I said, well, okay, well, in your case, we'll make that exception. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Come back and work your program and call your sponsor, get a sponsor, and do all the other things all the other tools we have in our tool chest.
One of the things that we do, and I'm sure that we all do this, is require NA meetings. Well, the judicial review of the NA experience, I think, is a very important review. They come to the bench and hand the judge the NA sheet. And the judge says on the record, Ms. X has done all of her 33 NAs since our last time together. And then that gives you also an indication of where they're going for their NAs. And if you know the territory, you can ask about the meetings, ask about their sponsor. You can ask about what step they're on. You can really engage them in a way that is like the drug court model.
Have you, in your experience, had breakdowns within your team where, for example, the public defender feels the bar is being set too high for clients, or the district attorney feels that you are leaning over backwards to let the clients get away with anything? Have any of you experienced that?
Yes, on both sides, as
Okay.
team participants change. And the makeup of the team, the dynamics among the team members can really set the tone for the court. I have different probation officers who have a very different personal approach to what they need to do, whether they need to reinforce or whether they need to criticize, and make sure they've outlined every failing the defendant has in a hearing, as opposed to just kind of giving me a summary and letting me handle some of the discussion with the defendant, which I prefer to do because then it takes probation out of the realm of being the bad guy, and it doesn't create a hostile relationship. They're going to be working closest with the clients anyway.
How do you work on bringing them on board so that this team works for you?
We do that primarily in the staffings when we meet together to talk about individual cases. And in Prop 36, we meet as a legal team at least once a month. During a lunch hour, we have other players that come in, administrators that are part of the legal team. But we talk then, and we try and focus on the need to accept, for purposes of this program, if not for your whole worldview, that this is a disease, that we are treating a disease, that it has symptoms that we don't necessarily find acceptable. Lying, manipulation, those types of behaviors will occur between a probation officer and a client with whom they're trying to work. And it's hard for some probation officers, especially new ones, not to take that personally, so they can get a little dug in. And we just try and talk them through that, because
And
it
so
happens.
you do that on a monthly basis?
We
And
do
what-
that on individual cases.
Okay, what about Judge Morris, Judge Flores? How do you work with that?
Every time there's a change of personnel, as Nancy suggests, it's a moment of crisis on the team because you do get an appeal that's fresh off the street, an armed probation officer who has just rocked and socked them and who has no idea of what drug court or Prop 36 is all about. And it happens that way with regard to the PD and the DA as well. It bespeaks the need for training for these folks. And in my experience, all the judicial counseling and all of the collegial team building in your own little house doesn't make a big difference. But when they gather at a conference with other public defenders or DAs or probation officers, and they get properly trained in therapeutic justice, then you have some major thinking patterns change. But that is, in my experience, training is the most important single thing for those new members of the team before they're going to come aboard and buy in what we're doing here.
Okay, good. What about you? Anything to add, Rogelio, or do you agree?
It's just that when we started in drug court 7 years ago, a lot of these battles were fought between the DA, the public defender, probation, and all the stakeholders in drug court. And so when Prop 36 came about, it was natural to have DAs and public defenders experienced in drug court and probation officers who were assigned to the Proposition 36 calendar. So they're seasoned. I have a senior DA, a senior public defender. They're in my court 5 days a week. Every day I have the same attorney on both sides since we've started, and dedicated probation officers, and they have all bought into the concept of therapeutic justice. They do their job. They're forcefully advocate for their sides, but at the same time they all understand. All the stakeholders understand the importance of what we're trying to accomplish for these individuals.
So you really haven't had that turnover that the
Not yet,
others
although
have.
I can see the writing on the wall. It's going to happen soon, and we're going to struggle with those issues when that happens. And I agree with Pat. I think that the idea is sending your team players to trainings so they can learn to be more effective advocates, not only for their side, but for the concept of therapeutic justice.
All right, you've listened, you've staffed, you put it at the end of the calendar, and you thought this over, and actually this client's going to residential. That's appropriate, you feel. A client can't possibly do it. He's got a job, the outpatient is the least and the most, and can't do anything else. How do you motivate this client to follow through with a change in recommendation that client is not going to like? Because we know clients are not always happy. Rogelio's brought up that wonderful client who says, please help me. But we have a lot of clients who say, hey, I don't agree, and I don't really want to do this, and I'm mad. What do you do with the client?
If we have staffed it and concluded that residential is right, I will explain as directly as I can to the client that whatever obligations they feel outweigh a residential program are going to go by the wayside if they don't get the treatment that they need. They may have a job, they may be taking care of kids. If their drug use continues, it is liable to escalate. They will lose the job, they run the risk of losing the kids. They have to accept that at this point, because of the drug use, we don't expect them to make the best decision for themselves. We understand, to the extent you can say you understand somebody else's life, which I'm always reluctant to say, we let them know it's going to cause a hardship. We try and give them time to work with their employers to see if they can arrange a leave of absence, to make arrangements for childcare if that's necessary. But we basically say this is what the team and the experts have decided that you need. This is what you're entitled to. And I will give them the option of declining Prop 36 services if
Okay.
they're not willing to accept that treatment level.
Okay, so you give them the option to decline. Pat or Rogelio or Stephanie do anything different?
Nancy said it beautifully.
Yeah, I think wonderful answer.
I think some of the best motivation for people to go into residential treatment has to come even from the family members who are present in court. And sometimes it involves us talking not only to the defendant, but to everybody involved. This is a family unit that's in crisis, and they're really suffering. And you remind the defendant, what I try to do is remind the defendant as to why we've come to this point, the dirty tests and the missed groups and all the other problems that are going on, and remind the defendant that this is actually better for them. I know it doesn't seem like that now, but you really got to sign on. And ultimately, the best motivator is the fact that this case is going to be dismissed when you complete this program. Where else can you get this done? It can't happen another way. This is going to happen for you. So remember that, and you keep reminding them why they're here. Sometimes even that doesn't work, and then we're stuck. But
Rogelio,
I've attempted, whenever possible, to key on family, particularly children, dependent children, and what's the long-term greatest benefit for their children. And if we can get them looking at the family and its preservation, which is quite often very successful, you can move them toward that residential bed, acknowledging that this has to be the priority, that they've had 4 jobs in 2 years, and it's not going to change.
Right.
They'll keep getting them and losing them if this kind of relapse continues.
Have you ever been in a position where you receive, I don't care whether the treatment recommendation is made by probation or treatment or it's filtered, it comes to you, and you look at it and you say, I can't believe this. Outpatient again, his client is failing in everything. This man or woman is a manipulator. They've been using drugs. How could anyone make this recommendation? I don't agree with it. And I'm not going to follow it. Have you all had this experience? Maybe not Stephanie, you just started out here, but the rest of you I bet have.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have and you have no problem with disagreeing with it. How do you do it?
We dialogue on the record because treatment is there.
Okay, you have treatment there.
Probation is there. The attorneys are before me. So we'll, in the presence of the client, we'll try to mush our way through this and figure out. And that's not an unusual hypo that you gave. You may have probation acknowledging that there are no residential beds available, simply saying back to day treatment. We'll intensify. We'll go from 4 to 5 days a week, but that's all. And if you think this is ridiculous, we've been through this scenario several times now, and she's made no progress. Let's talk about the need for a residential bed. And shouldn't we put him on the list, even if there's a wait? Shouldn't we move this to a different level? And you know, the judge asked the question rhetorically of everybody there, and if you're thinking logically, everybody kind of joins into the dialogue, and you make a solution together.
And this is generally what you would do too, Rohili, what happened in your court, because you have
Absolutely.
treatment there. And what about you, Nan?
You know, just kind of, that's pretty much what we do. We may do it in staffing as opposed to on the record.
Okay.
But we try and hash it out. And it would, I don't think I've ever had a circumstance where I've simply overruled everyone
Listen.
and taken the whole decision to myself. But the interesting spin on that, when I first started doing drug court, is, and it's just a question of dialogue with the clients. The defendants are not involved in our staffings.
Exactly.
So we would have a staffing and we would all come to a conclusion about what was the right way to handle this case, the right sanction, the right whatever. And we'd go into court and the defendant would come up with something that we hadn't even talked about. And initially, I would take that into consideration and either follow the staffing recommendation or kind of go off on my own at that point based on what the defendant told me. I think it created a perception among some of the team members that I was completely gullible and would believe anything I was told. But I have learned at that point that if we get information that I want to talk about, we simply put the case at the bottom of the stack and restaff it.
All right, let's talk about the chronic relapser. You know, this is a client who's trying. He goes to meetings, he goes to treatment, he participates, has a sponsor, and then meets up with old friends, slippery places, slippery people, uses again, always promises it will never happen again, but it does. And this is the repeated pattern you're seeing. Nothing that is earth-shattering in terms of no new offenses committed, no reports to probation, but just continues to use drugs. And this has gone on now for, let's say, 6 months into this program, and you know, you either are going to complete or not complete. What do you do with this client? This is a client I think we all have.
This client, with all those failures, obviously has racked up a number of violations.
Right.
So I would at that point most likely simply take him out of 36, find him unamenable to treatment, at least within the context of 36 and its programs, and place him in drug court with a program that we have called Inroads at the county jail, which is a 90-day program, intensive 8-hour-a-day program, and then bring him out once again into drug court on
So
general
you're going
terms
to
of probation.
move him into drug court and keep working with him if you can.
Right.
But you're going to use some stronger tools than you have under 36.
Exactly.
Okay. Anyone who would not do that?
Well, I think that if you have a person who's facing their third drug-related violation of probation, and what we've done on occasion is continue the arraignment on the violation of probation, put the person in custody, send them into the sheriff's treatment program for a period of 90 days, or 30 days, or 60 days, or 90 days, whatever the period is, and leave them in custody so they understand that they are at the end of the rope. And I equate it to them being at the edge of the cliff. You have now walked to the end of the cliff, and there's nothing left here, and either I'm going to send you off to the Department of Corrections or do something here, but we're done with you. But we're going to give you a chance, dry out, get into custody, get in the sheriff's treatment program, then come back out, and we'll talk about it. And then we'll look at whether or not we're going to take an admission of violation of probation, or take the violation off calendar if the person wants to get back into treatment. And we'll reassess the person again at the next review.
Well, let me ask you about this client. Let me give you the opposite. Here's the client who has, he's come on board, wonderful attitude. She's done everything you could have asked of her. She's been with you for only 3 months, though. Okay, she's only been with you 3 months, but listen to what she's done. No dirty tests.